Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is, well, it is April 25th, and remember we started this month off with making you aware that April is Sarcoidosis month. So we have on our Sacridosis t-shirts because the congressman supports the cure. And we actually have t-shirts for all of you as well. We just couldn't get them to you in time. Damn. So we're going to go around the table as we always do. We're going to make some great introductions to people who are here with us on today. I want you to remember to share as always. Remember to share. And I'm going to start with my coworker, Dr. Douglas Graham. Introduce yourself to everybody that's here.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for about 30 years. And for the last 2 years, I worked with a congressman in the Office on Health Issues. And I'm going to try and answer your questions best I can. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with these colleagues.
That is simply fantastic. And Joseph Harrington.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Harrington.
Yeah. The man with the plan with the awesome art always in the background. Go right ahead.
Thank you. My name is Joe Harrington, native Chicagoan. I've worked in a lot of different fields, education, mental health, but mostly public health and hospitals. I worked at 3 different hospitals, University of Illinois, Mount Sinai, and Rush, and served as assistant commissioner at Chicago Department of Public Health under the illustrious Dr. Terry Mason. And then left and went to the Illinois Department of Public Health, where I was the regional health officer for Cook County and served as an administrative law judge.
All right, Nikki, you ready?
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, I was just cueing you to keep going with the intros.
Oh, okay. I guess I was stalling or something. I don't know. To the urologist of the stars, the man who's here with us all the time, who keeps all the men really healthy. And I hope you guys are listening to him on the radio. That's our very own Dr. Terry Mason. Dr. Mason?
Thank you so much, Nikki. And thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Really, really appreciate this opportunity and to share this time with my esteemed colleagues. We will all work to try to give you the information that you need that'll help you make a better life. I was a urologist for 26 years, Nikki, in the city of Chicago, and left the urology practice after 26 years to join then Mayor Daley at the Chicago Department of Public Health, and then left and went over to the Cook County Department of Public Health. And while I was there, I had a chance to run the whole show. So it was interesting to get that whole breadth of experience of running not just the public health department, but the entire health and hospital system. And I'm grateful for it. So thank you.
Outstanding. When you say someone is well-rounded, that's our Terry Mason. He is well 100. That's what she's known as. She's known as Dr. 100.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Nikki, for having me. I want to say thank you to the Congressman, Danny Davis. And I'm just 100. I'm just on here learning from community, having community conversations, and enjoying the fellowship. And hopefully in this process, I learn from also my esteemed colleagues here on the panel, trying to learn what Dr. Mason is cooking up. How can I experience the health and hospital systems, when it's greatness, what I'm saying, being an administrative judge. I'm just trying to do it all. And glad to be here and glad to share such brilliant company. Thank you so much. Dr. Hampton, did you introduce yourself yet?
I'm about to do it right now.
All right. I want to hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Hampton.
Thank you, Dr. Maya, and always happy. The sun is trying to shine behind my head, and I am on a couch to be consistent with Couch Conversations with the Doctor. I'm a family doctor on the south side of Chicago. I have a little extra expertise in the treatment of obesity. and definitely I'm known in my health system for diabetes care, helping people to, get off medicines, get off of insulin as quickly as possible. In fact, one of our, followers, Gwen Butler, who I see in the chat, has joined us, and she was an example of that. And I'm really excited to continue to teach this healing message. And I love being here. I want to thank Dr. Mason for allowing us to have an engaging conversation last week where we talked a little bit about the differences between low carb and low fat. And that was a really engaging conversation. So we're going to keep the conversation going. And Nikki, back to you.
All right. Did we get the opportunity to introduce Dr. 100 before my tech difficulty started?
We did, but I see Shauna on the line, and I've never seen you virtually. Met you in a couple of places. I don't know if she's going to introduce herself, but I introduced myself, Nikki, already.
All right, so that's Dr. 100. I see Tony introduced herself when I was coming back in. And then I'd like to introduce my other coworker that's here with us on today. She's really a comedian, and she missed her calling. And her name is Shauna Smith. Shauna, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you, Nikki, for having me. And I want to introduce myself as Shauna Smith Jackson. And I work for Congressman Danny Davis. I am a chief receptionist. I have been now with the Congressman for 14 years. And so I want to say thank you again, doctors, for having me to promote awareness for sarcoidosis.
All right, I see the man with the plan, the one who wears the hats all the time, the chef for his children at home with his Beats earphones on. That's our very own Dr. Pete. He has made his arrival. Dr. Pete.
I want to know, what is Dr. Green doing in my living room over there?
I know, right? I'm moving, sitting on the futon is what's happening.
I love it. I love it. Hey, guys, I'm excited to be here. I look forward to this every week, educating the community. And this should be a good discussion. I have several patients with sarcoid, and so it'd be interesting to hear your testimony. And I'm looking forward to helping to clarify any issues or questions that people might have.
Outstanding. So as always, we're going to allow someone to do their testimony, and then we're going to have open questions and open dialogue. Remember that no question is too big or small for our doctors to handle for you. And if they can't answer your question tonight, they will definitely get you some additional information. As always, Dr. 100 says we have to always keep it transparent and keep it 100. I want to say hey to Toya Smith that's here, to Gwen Butler that's here, to Paulette who is here with us. Lorenzo Burton says hello, everyone. And I think I missed somebody, but I really can't see the person under Toya Smith. It seems like that person is blurred on my end, and I think that's some of the tech difficulties I'm having. Do you see who they are? Who is that under Toya Smith, Tony?
I see Rena Tang, and she, in fact, let's make it easy. And basically, I guess we should just quickly answer this question. I have read that neuropathy is a side effect of metformin. Is this something that any of you all have encountered? And the answer is C, or yes. The answer is yes. And one of the things that, interesting enough, my lovely wife had to tell me about was, as a pharmacist, she said, make sure all your patients on metformin are aware of B12 and the B12 deficiency that can occur because of metformin. I think it affects like your homocysteine levels and maybe some other things. But when you have a deficiency of B12, it can cause neuropathy. In fact, when my patients come in with neuropathy symptoms, I tell them about turmeric. I tell them about vitamin D. I tell them about the B vitamins, but the B12 is the main one that can sneak up on you. So a neuropathy is a potential side effect of metformin, primarily, I think, because of that B12 deficiency. So to shout out to all the clinicians who are prescribing metformin, make sure that the patients are at least having a B12 level. And if not, you should just supplement with B12. It's a pretty benign vitamin. So if you supplement, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I just want to say something regarding this. So I tell my patients all the time, there is no medication that does not have a side effect. And so whenever we are prescribing something, we're doing so with the idea that this medication will do more good than harm. And so that being said, metformin is, I mean, it has, I always tell my people, it has survival benefits, even separate from its ability to keep your sugars controlled. It literally, patients who are on this medicine, diabetics who are on this medicine live longer as a result of this medication. So I say that to say that whenever we're prescribing something, we know something might happen that we didn't intend for it to happen. But we're doing so with the idea that you're better off with this than without. But I hear my brother Terry talking now. If we consume the correct foods, we would never need metformin. And so we're back to overconsumption of highly processed foods. It destroys those beta islet cells in the pancreas. They become inflamed and they don't work right, and hence the need for a metformin. But when you're on it, we're making the assumption that you would do better with this than without. You're never without the ability to come off of it if you correct your lifestyle, which many people have a tremendous amount of barriers, right? And the social determinants of health and food deserts and things like that. So we understand. So I always say you can change your lifestyle, but in the meantime and between time, let's keep the sugars down. Let's prevent in-organ damage as a result of the diabetes. And so that's all I wanted to say, that there's probably 15 side effects that are listed on the package insert. We don't see them all, right? You don't, like, I rarely see vitamin B12 deficiency as a result of metformin. We do see renal dysfunction. We do see flatulence and other things, but I don't see that a lot. I don't know what my colleagues think.
So I'm going to extend renal just a little bit. So is this something that's permanent? Is it corrected with the B12? Is there a timeline on how long this may last? Can you guys touch on that really quickly?
I'll say the answer is it definitely, when it's a B12 deficiency, it will get better once you supplement. Your B vitamins are particularly important in your mitochondria, that energy producing organelle that are in your cells. So the answer is yes. Now, the tricky part is diabetes. Now, that's a whole nother subject. When you get neuropathy because of the high sugar level, the glycation, that glycating process where all the sugars are irritating the nerves, there's a point of no return. And there's never a point when you're not going to try to fix it with lifestyle, but there's a point of no return. And I'm going back to Gwen Butler, who's in the chat, and I can talk about this publicly because she's a patient of mine who was on the podcast and publicly disclosed that she was on insulin, got off of insulin in 45 days. I can't remember if she was on metformin, but I will say this. I had a patient today who was on Jardiance, another wanted to get on Jardiance, couldn't really afford it. It was $500 per month. Now I want you to pay attention to this. It was $500 a month for Jardiance, and it's a good drug. Let's be clear about that. We don't have a problem with the drug. I got a problem with the $500. Now, this is the problem. I looked it up to illustrate to the patient. I was trying to encourage her to do lifestyle. And I said, well, what does Jardiance do for you, right? You look it up, and anybody can Google this now. Just Google Jardiance and effect on your hemoglobin A1C. And guess what it did? What they're going to give you is laughable at this point. I think it was a 0.5 to a 0.75 or 0.9 reduction in your A1C. Now, I want you to think about that. You get less than a 1 point reduction for a $500 a month drug, and all you had to do is stop eating all the wrong foods that raise your blood sugar, as Dr. Mason would say. Now, what did Gwen Butler do? Her A1C was, I don't know, it was 10. It went down to like 5. So you have to make, so all you did, you make a dietary decision. You understand how the body works, and then you reverse your diabetes. You don't have to spend $500 a month on, and metformin is a cheap drug, you know. But what I'm saying is, Brother Pete is right, it's a longevity drug. But what I'm saying is, when you have options in front of you, choose lifestyle over medication. So I don't want us to get too distracted because we have a guest and we're going to talk about sarcoid. But
we're not going to get distracted at
put
all. It's just like Dr. Mason says. I don't like when we use the word diet.
Yes.
I'm going to use, I want us to use the word, because what do you say? Diet means die, right? It's
That's
a
right.
lifestyle change. And just like with sarcoidosis, there are some things that you can do to make a lifestyle change. So,
Yeah.
Shauna, when were you first diagnosed with sarcoidosis?
19.
I'm sorry?
1995.
Okay, so that's been about, if my math is correct, about 27 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
You don't look a day over 17.
I know.
So why don't you tell us how you live with sarcoidosis every day?
Well, so it's my diet. And so I would have these flare-ups. And so I took the medication of methotrexate, and I also took a medication called Plaquenil. And so I have skin sarcoidosis. That's what I have. And so I also have a form of arthritis, but that's not what they call it. I just have sarcoidosis in my joints. And I also have deformity in my fingers, and that's from the sarcoidosis. And so I've also taken prednisone. And so my flare-ups come when I eat too much salt. And so I have to stay away from salt. And so if I don't stay away from salt, I become very weak in reference to my joints. There are some days where I can't get out the bed. There are some days where I can't open up a bottle, a can, a jar. I can't move my fingers. They swell up pretty bad. And so I have had my share of pain with sarcoidosis. And so if I control my diet, I'm okay. And so, again, I've been living with it for 27 years. And if you can see with the skin, I had lesions in my skin. And so I had to get steroid injections. And with the steroid injections, it turned my skin color to a lighter color. And so I probably would never get that color back in my skin to the way it is. And so I'm living with it, and I'm fine with it as long as I keep my diet. I just hope that there is a cure for sarcoidosis really soon.
Okay, and what would you say to someone who's been newly diagnosed with sarcoidosis? What would your statement be to them?
Make sure that they have a really good diet and make sure that they follow up with their doctors. Exercise and research and find out exactly what sarcoidosis is and where it come from. They really don't know where sarcoidosis come from. I know my doctor asked me, Asia, a lot of people who go to Asia catch sarcoidosis, so I don't know how true that is. But I'm just telling you what my doctor told me at the time that I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis. So Asia's climby, moldy, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was wondering if Dr. Graham could, at least share. I know he's had some. That's his life's work.
I think he's itching to share.
Yeah, and he's got to be itching. I was itching for him.
He kept going on and off mute, so I know he is itching to share. I was just waiting until Shauna could get.
No, we're all itching for you.
Right. Come on, Doug.
Come on, Doug.
You're muted still. You're muted, Doug.
The thing about this is, there we go. This is a disease where it's really not your fault. There's nothing that you did to cause it, and there's nothing that you could have done to prevent it. So you don't have to go looking around and saying, well, I shouldn't have had that food. I shouldn't stayed up so late. It's not necessarily starting from lifestyle. It's the way your body reacts to a certain challenge. And different people react differently. And you can get these collections of tissue called granulomas in a variety of different places. And it can become very serious because they can deposit in the heart and they can keep the heartbeat from being transmitted regularly. And some people require pacemakers to overcome the blockage from these granulomas. It can also affect your vision as well. And more commonly, it's in the lungs and in the glands in the lungs called lymph nodes. So it's really important to have that doctor take a look at you and check out all these areas when you're first diagnosed, because it's critical to know, are your lungs affected? Is your heart affected? Or other parts of your body affected? Because that affects the kind of medications and treatments that you get. Not all cases are equally severe, and some tend to be very, very hard to manage and require a lot of medications. So there's a lot of information out there that can be helpful. It does help to read it. Places like, the Mayo Clinic, Family Practice, the National Institutes of Health has a really nice handout on it, and that's a good place to start. But I think you need to have that working relationship with your doctor, and he can create a schedule of follow-up visits to monitor this disease and changes your medications as you need it. Now, the other thing to add is, my career has been gone over 3 decades. The changes in the last 10 years about how we approach this disease has been really, really very important. And Ms. Jackson Smith was talking about the medications she's been on. These are some of the older medications. There are newer ones coming down the pipelines so that you can avoid some of the side effects of medications like Plaquenil, methotrexate, and prednisone. So I think that the future, in my perspective, is brighter, much brighter than it was 10 or 20 or 30 years ago.
Well, that is a beacon of light for people who are suffering with sarcoidosis. That is a great beacon of light. Gwen Butler put her A1C3 up here, that's 5.5. You go, Gwen. Nellie Purnell King is here, and she says, good evening, everyone. Altria says, good evening, everyone. Oh, Tamika Thomas is here. She says, hey, Uncle Terry. And speaking about Uncle Terry, I just got a message from Kamal Murray. Let's give a great shout out to Kamal over at Excess Tennis. So for all of you who need to do some great exercise, go right over on 53rd and State to Excess Tennis, to the beautiful tennis facility. Join one of the clubs or classes over there and get yourself in shape. You got just a few more days till the real summer weather hits. And, you want to have that, as Maya would say, she's talking to her 70-year-old body. You want to get tight. You want to get right. So let's get over there and get some cardio going on with some tennis. And he says, hey, to Dr. Terry Mason, that's Kamal Murray over at Excess Tennis. And of course, Tamika Thomas is doing the call out, telling everybody to come join because we are here. We love it. Sister Bonnie is here and she says, that's God. You are absolutely right, Sister Bonnie. That is God making a way. Gwen Butler says, Dr. Hanson, one of the nurse practitioners that I work with, Stephanie Atwood, and I were watching our podcast, and she wants to know, how did you get your teeth? I'm not going to say everything she said, but how did you get your teeth so white? Laughing out loud, that's exactly how she said it. All right. He uses baking soda. No, I'm just joking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I bought them, but no, I have an interesting story. When my mom worked at Nestle's for years, and I shout out to all the single moms raising nappy-headed, used to be nappy-headed babies, right? So, but she used to bring candy back home, and when I was very small, I sat there and just ate a lot of candy one day, and of course, I got very sick. And she said, from that day forward, I wouldn't eat candy. So I think part of it is I stayed away from the things that cause harm. And I think some genetics, some luck. I never had braces, but I appreciate the compliment. So shout out to Stephanie Atwood for the compliment. We all need to be patted on the back every once in a while.
All right.
Let me just say this.
There's nothing wrong with people who wear braces, though, Tony. And to those adults who
right.
have to wear them. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'll give you that. I agree. And I wanted to say this real quick. One of the things that I learned was that when they had the September 11th event and they had all the buildings collapse, a lot of the people who worked afterwards in that environment not a lot, but several people develop sarcoidosis, which is horrible. They're trying to do the work of trying to, take care of that space. So I mentioned that to say that, your pollutants and irritants, these are risk factors that's going to cause inflammation. So to the degree you have control over that, I really encourage you to think about that. And that includes smokers. Smoking is an irritant. So if we can stop smoking, that's important. I think, we had mentioned exercise earlier. So but for me, as a person who focuses on nutrition, it's about inflammation. And you really want to, whatever you can do to reduce inflammation in your life, whether you have it or you don't want to get it, is that anti-inflammatory diet. So I am curious, though. I know you mentioned, Shona, you mentioned salt. You said diet was important. When you say diet, are you talking about removing processed foods? What type of changes did you make yourself to improve your diet so that you would improve your sarcoidosis and reduce remissions?
So, Tony, right before Shauna answers you, I want to keep her from cutting you, because remember I told you Shauna was a comedian and she'll cut you. So let me keep her from cutting you. Her name is Shauna. She will cut you if you call her Shona. She will cut you. So I don't want her to cut you. It's Shauna.
Shauna.
So just let me get it right. Shauna. Because Shauna will cut you calling her Shona. Ask Mom.
Now, is Shauna from the West Side?
Ooh. No, Pete, she lives up the street from you.
Shots fired. Okay, cool. Shauna, you all right with me then? You all right with me?
And Shauna, while you're answering Dr. Hampton's question, I remember you in your story that you wrote, you talked about how you were diagnosed when they found some problems with your lymph nodes. Mm-hmm. So if you can share what actually sent you to the doctor right after you answered Dr. Hampton's question, go right ahead.
Okay. And so processed foods, bacon, lunch meat, those type of things that I had to eliminate, or if I didn't eliminate, I had to cut back on processed foods that had a lot of sodium in it. Yeah, which they have a lot of. So even turkey, like I have to watch eating turkey because turkey has a lot of sodium in it, and so I don't eat much turkey at all. If I do, I have to cook it myself. And
well,
so,
Shauna gave us a whole class on turkey bacon one day. Dr. Mason talked about turkey is not bacon. She was your advocate that day, Dr. Mason. She gave us everybody who walked in the office that morning, I hope y'all not eating that turkey bacon. So she gave us a whole class on turkey bacon. But what happened with those lymph nodes, Shauna? How did you actually end up going to the doctor? What led you there?
So I had a lymph node behind my ear. And so it bothered me such. I went to the doctor. And so they did every test possible you can think of. And everything came back negative except an ACE level. Mm-hmm. My ACE level was off the charts. And so I did a chest x-ray. And the lymph nodes that were in my chest was also swollen, if you will. And so how they determined that I had sarcoidosis, I had lesions in my skin, so I had to do skin biopsies, and it came back as skin sarcoidosis. And so when I began to take the prednisone at first, the lymph nodes did go away, and so I was just dealing with the joint pain. And so that's how they found out was through this and the skin.
So Dr. Graham, so I know that as a primary care doctor, we pretty much do check those angiotensin converting enzyme levels, ACE levels. Any other comments about, why that happens or why we need to monitor that?
I think my concerns are things like the heart and lungs. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes if they have cough, we want to do breathing tests. We want to do an EKG. Now, the other things that I think can get you into trouble are vitamin D levels and calcium levels. And there's sometimes you get a lot of sarcoidosis, your calcium levels are very, very high, and you get symptoms. You need different medications to treat that. So I don't think that you have to be, you could be just doing the things you usually do. But when you hear sarcoidosis, think about the heart, the lungs, the joints, skin, the angiotensin converting enzyme level, calcium, and vitamin D. I think you've got pretty much most of it covered.
And you probably shouldn't be supplementing
Yeah, that's
calcium and
right.
vitamin D, if you have this condition. If you do supplement, you need to do it under the supervision of a doctor who understands this, rheumatologist, probably not even a primary care. I would say it gets a little nuanced. And, we know that the T cells will increase your ACE levels because you have all these immune T cells going crazy and they increase the levels. But we do want to, this is really a condition you want to use a team approach and have a primary, a specialist involved, hopefully somebody in nutrition involved, so that you get the full spectrum of care to help you understand what you need to do and improve upon.
Yeah, if I can, Nikki, I just want to jump in and add something.
Sure.
Yeah, and as I listened to Shauna's story, she gave an excellent description of how you reach a clinical diagnosis. Something was wrong. She went to see a doctor. There was an x-ray. They needed to gather more information. As they got more information, then they were clear on what was happening. And that's really what happens when people go to the doctor. First, it's something that's very general, and they might not know specifically what it is. So there may be tests. They may have to talk to another doctor, consult with another doctor, but that's a process. So sometimes people need to be patient because there might not be immediate answers. A lot of times people go to the doctor expect an immediate answer, and they may not be able to get an immediate answer unless it's something that's very obvious and they can deal with immediately.
Because I was scared at that time. I died because I didn't know what sarcoidosis was. And then when you talk about lungs, and so I saw the pulmonary doctor. I mean, I was seeing all these different doctors because they were trying to figure out what was going on with me. And so to know that I was going to live, I was like, yes, thank you, jeez. That you can live with sarcoidosis. You just have to have a healthy diet and continue to see your doctor on a regular basis, because ACE levels have been normal for like the last 20 years, but I still suffer with joint pain from the sarcoidosis.
Well, one thing I was trying to get you to share, Shauna, was the importance of having your primary care physician, which is something that all the doctors on the panel always talk about how important that is. So I wanted you to make sure, just to share with people how important it is to have a primary care physician, that's really important. Tanya actually shared, it is found to be hereditary and commonly passed off as fibromyalgia. So many are uninformed or just don't want to touch this disease because they just don't know. Maya, you're nodding. What's your thought?
I was going to say, Shauna, you led right into, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you led right into some of the things on, the patient as the leader of the healthcare exchange, and Mr. Harrington mentioned that patient leading the healthcare exchange needs to say, hey, here's what's going on, and keep open dialogue, and don't be afraid. The days are gone when you go to the doctor and the doctor talks and you listen and that's it. You got to tell the doctor what's going on, because a lot of times we're like, how people think about computers, you put some input and stuff comes out. Like, we're trained, there's the medical training, which is why you're coming to see us, for the medical expertise and the things that we know. But then there's the culturally competent, historical, same culture experience that a lot of people prefer, which allows us to kind of navigate some of the nuances, right? And then when it comes down to it, those chest exams, the chest x-ray, some of the pulmonary function tests, those are like, without, I love the partnership you're describing and the leadership you're showing in your healthcare, because without you, like, you put the information in and collaborated with your physician, and they were able to, like a computer, pump that information out in a culturally appropriate way. So when you talk about the chest x-ray, the CT scan, the blood, the ACE levels in the blood, checking your kidneys, the pulmonary function, that is literally the stuff that we read in books that we prepare ourselves to offer you once you put the information in, right? And just like someone said, sometimes when people come with these symptoms, people are like, oh, fibromyalgia. I want to say fibromyalgia is what we call a diagnosis of exclusion. That means we looked at your chest x-ray. That means we did all of this. And when, you know how it says, having done all you can, you know, and fibromyalgia, you know, so that's when that's supposed to pop in, not you went to the doctor and the doctor just said, oh, whatever you're talking about is fibromyalgia. That's not how that works, you know? So I love that partnership. Keeping it 100. As a person who does have tattoos, I want to talk about what's going on with sarcoid. And like we talked about some of the things people see, and you mentioned some skin stuff. A lot of times when people have tattoos, you know, sarcoid will have an inflammatory reaction to that tattoo. So a tattoo like this, you'll see it'll start raising up, you know, and when the tattoo is supposed to be flat and smooth, it'll start having raised edges and sometimes raised in the middle, points of it where it looks white and crackly and blistery. If you're seeing tattoos like that, then you might want to get it. I mean, that's not going to be in our medical books because I guess the people who wrote it don't have tattoos, but keep it at 100.
Okay.
That's what I've seen around the way. A lot of people do have with sarcoid do have reactions to the ink in the tattoos.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Well, Pete is smiling like a happy dad when Maya is speaking. Pete, what is it that you have to say?
No, I agree with Dr. Green. I agree with everything she said, and I think Shauna showed that to Dr. Green's point that you know, as a patient, you have to advocate for yourself. And so by going to the doctor when you knew that something didn't seem right. So someone that has worked with men and men's health for so long, a lot of times we need to coach our men to do what you did, which was don't wait till you got the big knot, the big softball sitting on your neck. You know, you just notice something small behind your neck and you say, hey, something's not right here. Let me go in. It could be nothing. We don't make the assumption that is something that you need to run from or be afraid of. And so we just have to coach our male counterparts to do what you did, which was advocate for yourself and to just say, hey, this could be something. I wanted to bring it to your attention. And then to Dr. Green's point, once we start looking, we feel that knot, and then we start looking back at your labs and we start saying, oh, look at this calcium levels up, and oh, look at this. Oh, and I remember one time you came in and you were a little short of breath. So now it all starts to make sense to us and we can put the complete picture together. But, you know, other than that, a small calcium level that's elevated could be, oh, yeah, are you taking calcium? Yeah, I am. Okay, well, you need to stop because, you know, your calcium level was elevated. But knowing that had nothing to do with it. The idea is that this person probably has sarcoid, and that's the reason why the calcium level is up. The other thing I wanted to say was that that came to mind, which is I heard someone say, and Serena Williams was one of the women that said it, and she said that Black women interaction with healthcare is almost like Black men's interaction with the police. Oh. And this was really troublesome for me to hear that because, you know, I spent so much of my life in medical school trying to heal people. And I just had to stop and just say, that is a horrible thought that one, Black women get dismissed, right? You just get dismissed. But then even two, that, you know, your interaction is very, with the healthcare industry isn't so pleasant. So I'm saying, in spite of all of that, like Pastor Maya said over there, after you done all you could do, but you still persevered and went in there, knowing that maybe sometimes the healthcare environment hasn't been so pleasant to you, right? And so I appreciate that. I applaud you for that. And we just got to get the brothers thinking in the same vein and get the brothers in when something don't seem right. You know, just go in and just see what happens. Let us get some laughs. Let us get an X-ray. We never know. I say, push come to shove, it's all normal. Great. We all sleep well at night.
All right, Pete. So true. It's so true. And it's shameful to say that her comment was true just as well. You know, Tanya says exactly, and thank you. Tamika Thomas says some men don't like the doctor. She was agreeing with what you were saying, and she also says, as a nurse, I see it, and it happened. I see it, and it has happened to me. And I think a lot of women have been a victim of, that type of health care. That's why it is so important to have a primary care physician who you can relate to. And I think since day one, when Pete and I were here alone, that was the topic of our conversation, how important it was to have a physician that you could talk to and be able to get the proper health care. We have lost lives due to that. Judge Hatchett's daughter, when we talk about certain things, they're just wouldn't listen. Had a baby, went to the doctor at the hospital just to have a baby, and people were not listening.
Nikki, I had a patient that had a cosmetic procedure in Miami, came back home, was short of breath, went to the surgeon, went to a surgery center here, and kind of got, blew off, basically. Mm-hmm. She came to my office. I sent her to the ER because I thought she had a blood clot. The lady had a blood clot in her lungs. And I was sitting there like, what person? Now, we know people that have surgery have a higher risk for blood clots. Why wouldn't the surgeon just say, hey, humor me, I need you to get a CAT scan? Why wouldn't they do that? It was just, and so it's just, it's sad. But Shauna, I just want to thank you for your courage, and you're showing us that, look at you, you look great, you look healthy. And so that is amazing that you're here and you're sharing that with us.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it's important for people to understand that they're their own best advocate. Nobody's going to advocate for you like you'll advocate for yourself. And you have the power. I mean, don't think because you're talking to somebody that's very well educated, has got a degree in medicine, that you don't have the right to speak up. Remember that you're going there for a service, just like you go to get your car service. So you have a right to ask questions. What some people do is they write down their questions before they go so they don't forget what questions to ask. Yeah. So you need to ask questions. And if the doctor you're seeing doesn't answer your question, then you need to find another doctor. You need to find a doctor that you can relate to and will answer your questions.
I had a really good doctor over at Rush, Lewis Barnes. I had him for a long time. And he was really a good doctor because with the sarcoidosis, he did just that. He had my eye because people do have sarcoidosis in their eye. He had my heart because people do sarcoidosis, of the heart. I mean, everything you can think of, he sent me out for testing. And again, it came, I had, skin. So I Dr. Barnes retired. And so now I have Dr. Christopher Carpenter, who's also a good doctor. Put that out there.
And let's pause for a minute and ask ourselves, what's a good doctor? The first thing is, in our health system, we're not afraid to say that the patient is a customer. So a good doctor has to be comfortable treating you like a customer, because we know that I'm with Advocate Aurora. It's no problem to walk down to Rush or Northwestern and get care there. And when you're in a major metropolitan area like Chicago, you should be a customer because they have a ton of places where you can receive care. A good doctor should be a good communicator. I need to understand what you're talking about, and you need to talk to me in basic terms. I need to be empathetic. In other words, I need my patients to know that I actually care about what they're going through. And most importantly, I need to be collaborative, meaning if you come there, now I don't want you to have 100 things to talk about. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want you to be, what are the few things that you researched or discovered that you want me to partner with you to help clarify? I love when patients do that because if you do with Google, you can find out a whole lot of stuff before you walk through the door. You may be off base, but a lot of times patients are not off base. They come in there and say, "Doctor, I've been doing some research. What about this, this, and this?" And then my job gets easier, but I have to be humbled and don't be offended by the fact that somebody's done research. I actually appreciate it, and I use that to help guide my decisions. So I think, advocate for yourself. Like, I'm going to call her Miss Jackson because I'm not trying to mess up. Advocate for yourself like Miss Jackson and and let your doctor know, I've been doing some research. Will you, and it's the language you use, will you partner with me and work with me to find a solution? You don't go in there, act like you know everything. Your doctor don't know everything. Let's partner and find a solution.
Yeah,
Tamika
Dr.
Thomas says
Hampton.
that's a good point. Tamika Thomas says that's a good point, Dr. Hampton. And Paulette says, yes, doctor. Tanya says, yes, empathy is a must. And of course, Gwen says, thanks, Shauna. She wanted to make sure that she got that right. So she says, thanks, Shauna. Right before Joe starts, just want to let everyone know that the man who allows us to have this platform, the one who teaches us each and every day that health is wealth, has made his arrival. As I stated, the congressman would be running a little late, and I see that the congressman has made his arrival and he is here. So as the congressman gets the opportunity to unmute, I saw him that we didn't leave his t-shirt. His Sarcoidosis t-shirt is in the office. We didn't leave it there for him, but he had a really tight schedule today. So Congressman, whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
The only thing I'll need to say is that I was being interviewed by the environmentalists who were having their endorsement session. And all of these groups and organizations, when election time comes, they interview people running and ask you why you did this and why you didn't do that, why you support so-and-so and why you don't. That's part of the process. And so carry on. I just finished. I've had a very engaging and productive day. And so I want to hear the wrap up and all that. So please go right ahead. Good to see a patient on, because much of my engagement in healthcare really came from patient orientation. Even the organizations that I became a leader in and of, the group that always elected me was the patient group. As a matter of fact, when I usually got elected into leadership roles, I didn't run anything, but the patients were the ones who determined that I would play the leadership role. And that's who has been my undergirding support base relative to healthcare ever since I've been involved with it. And the reason I think that the federally qualified health centers have been as effective as they've been is because Senator Ted Kennedy and some of the rest of us mandated in the legislation that the patients had to be a central part of the management of these $1 million operations. And that's one of the reasons I suggest that of all the people I've known about who've done things in healthcare and advanced it, I don't know anybody I would suggest did more than Senator Ted Kennedy did. Even some of the presidents who've done what they've done, because none of them were around as long as Senator Ted Kennedy was around. And I can imagine what health may have become had he not had the accident with Mary Jo Kopechne, who died, and that put a damper on his ability to get elected president when he ran. So please carry on.
I think we were, Dr. Hampton, go ahead.
Actually, I was just teeing up Nikki. You can go ahead and make any comments you have.
So I know Dr. Hampton had shared what he thought or his thoughts of what your primary care physician should be to you. And he gave some great examples of what that should look like for you. And I just want to ask the other doctors on the panel, what are your thoughts? I know you probably concur with most of what he said, but is there anything that you feel that's special about your patients or that you look for in your patients? Dr. Mason.
Well, I'm not practicing anymore, but I'm going to give you the words of one of my teachers when I was in general surgery training. And he talked about the 3 important virtues or behaviors of what makes a good doctor. And he talked about the 3 A's. And the 3 A's, the first A was availability. Doesn't mean anything if people can't get to you or if you can't get an appointment, if you're not available. The second one is avidity. People have to like you, which means that you have to have an engaging personality to let people into your space and not feel threatened about it. And the third A was availability. You know, you got to be around. So avidity, availability are all those things that are very, very important. And it seems that Shauna ran into someone who had those qualities, who was available, who she could develop a relationship with, and had the ability to do what needed to be done to help get her on the course of getting the kinds of treatment that she needed by first understanding what the problem was and had the bridge to share that with her in a way that she understood. And that's the other piece. The other ability docs have to do is be able to adjust the language in such a way that the people you're talking to or trying to talk with understand exactly what you're saying and use examples out of their experience as best as you can to help make those points if possible.
All right, Douglas Graham, Dr. Graham.
Well, I agree with everything Dr. Hampton, Dr. Mason said, but a couple other words came to mind. And one is patience. And that is sometimes the doctor has to be patient because the story has to unfold a certain way. Sometimes, the words and experiences need to be heard a second or third time to get it right. And sometimes we as a physician have to try different things to get the answers right. And the other thing is persistence. I think to be successful, you just have to be persistent. And if one thing isn't working, you have to be willing to try something else. And you have to keep going to get the best possible outcome that you can. That includes the patient too, because sometimes you get a visit and you don't get your question answered. You got to make sure that you go back the next time with that question and another one. And you got to hang in there and not be discouraged. Just because the first time it wasn't perfect doesn't mean you can't get a better outcome the second or the third time.
All right, Dr. Maya, Dr. 100.
They cannot be uncomfortable being the Robin to your Batman. And a lot of times people, we wind up, like I said, that old way of thinking about what a physician is or a community healer is. And it doesn't work for our community. In our community, we need more Robins to the patient who is Batman, Batwoman, Bat captain of the leadership of the healthcare team. So, yeah.
All right, Joe Harrington.
Yeah, and this is directed to Dr. Hampton. Several years ago, Advocate, before it became Advocate Aurora, had an ad in the newspaper, and it had a picture of the most important piece of medical equipment that a physician could have. And he will like this. It was the human ear. You need a physician that will listen and listen with compassion.
Oh, outstanding, outstanding. And I concur to that one because I'm that patient who goes to the doctor. Somebody here can contest to that, but I'm that patient who goes to the doctor who pull up her note or her iPad or her iPhone, and I start reading off what my questions are. And I'm not leaving until I get them answered because I really don't care about that 15 minutes. I'm not leaving until I get them answered. Dr. P, what do you think?
Yeah. So I agree with all of my colleagues. I think every one of them had just really good comments. And all of the people that I looked up to and wanted to be like had all of those qualities. And then if I were just to add one thing to what they said would be, we're only as good as the team around us. And so, like a really solid glue person, like a good nurse, I mean, you cannot beat it. You cannot beat it because they're your extension, right? But then that requires for you to be, like Dr. Green said, you got to be able to be a support person too, so that you're not Mr. or Mrs. Know-it-all. And so there are times when your nurse remembers, this is Mrs. Jones. Remember the lady that went to the hospital? And so she knows all the details that can help allow you to respond more rapidly to something. I hear often, my doctor didn't call me back, and da 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 da. And sometimes that happens because they're overextended, right? So they have leadership roles, they have other things, research and other things that they're doing. But a good team around them, I tell you, and a lot of times they don't get the credit that they should. But there's always a good medical assistant, a good nurse, a good front staff person that's responsible for how you feel about your doctor. And the doctor gets all the credit, but it's that team that's supporting them. And they're the ones that's reminding the doctor that, oh, we have to do this for this person, and this paperwork needs to be done for their surgery or whatever. And so I just wanted to add that as well.
Outstanding. Shauna.
Yes.
What made Dr. Carpenter stand out to you? What made you stay? And Dr. Carpenter is listening. He's not going to say anything, but he's listening.
Dr. Carpenter had a lot of characteristics as Dr. Barnes. But when I first met Dr. Carpenter, he just asked about, myself. He asked me about my family history. And so he continued to do a lot of the things that Dr. Barnes was doing in the first place. And so that's how I ended up really liking Dr. Carpenter. And so he still did the same things that Dr. Carpenter did. He made sure that I followed up with a pulmonary function doctor, the heart doctor, the lung doctor specialist. And so Dr. Carpenter, he won me. Actually, Dr. Barnes referred Dr. Carpenter to me. So I was happy about that. So
and Dr. Carpenter says hi to Maya. He says, hey, Maya. And then he also says, you're right. Her name is Shauna.
Hey, Dr. Carpenter. Dr. Carpenter and I went to medical school together. He was the same then, always willing to work and tutor. He was tutoring other students while he was in med school. So he's on the ball, so proud to see him shine.
He just texted and said, Maya, don't tell no secrets. So I guess Maya don't tell no secrets. So Glenn Butler says, Shauna, may the blessings of this day radiate through your smile. Be helpful through your hands and shine through your heart. Oh, Gwen, that is simply fantastic. I love it. Angelique would like to know, how do I get more information on a lifestyle change program? I believe Dr. Hampton dropped a link in the chat box to help you with that. But we can also help you with that by just making sure that you tune in every Monday night for Couch Conversations with the Doctor, where true health is wealth. You know, Tanya says, yes, 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 no patience if I can't listen. You're absolutely right. And Gwen says, I am grateful to God to be here with all of you. And we are grateful to have you here, girl. You are a part of the Couch Conversations clan. As we do on every Monday night, we go around the table and we just ask your until next Monday. What is your thoughts until next Monday? What do you want to leave the viewers with until next Monday? So, and then I also have to say this little line, and that's, I know you guys hate to hear me say this, but it's our time. And then Shauna, I just want to let you know as well, Kamal wanted Dr. Hampton to know that her name is Shauna. You'll get it later, Dr. Hampton, because she will cut you. You'll get it later. Kamal says it's Shauna. So we wanted to make sure you know. Dr. Douglas Graham, you're until next Monday.
Well, I actually have a couple tonight, and we're talking about doctors and what to look for. And I think you want to find a doctor who wants you well. It doesn't take long when you're in that office to understand what that person's all about. If they're not interested in wanting you well, I think you might want to shop somewhere else. The second thing is, I want to reinforce what Dr. Pete said, is that all of us operate with a team. And one of the ways to help yourself is to be nice to the team. There are times where we're angry and frustrated and tense, but you don't want to be rude to the staff, to the nurse, to the receptionist, because they're the ones who are going to squeeze you in for that emergency appointment or take care of your kids when there's a problem. You know, if you're not nice to them, they'll remember that the next time around. So you do want to be nice to the team.
All right, Dr. Graham. Dr. Maya, Dr. 100, you're until next Monday.
Until next Monday, two quick things. Shauna, thank you for opening up. There are a lot of people out here that are in a space where they need to hear this. And some people not yet ready to go to the doctor, gonna look at their skin and say, look at that tattoo and say, So thank you for the work you're doing and being a partner in service to our community. The other thing I want to say is, hey, family, look, it's that time again. This rate in Chicago, this COVID rate is doing a little boop, 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 boop. So part of our protecting our tribe, Nikki's going to get into it. It's okay to wear a mask before they tell you to wear a mask. Because sometimes by the time they tell you to wear a mask, you should have worn a mask. Hey, follow if you get me. It's that time again, family. Let's get these masks on, get these hands clean. Nikki's going to demonstrate. And I'll see you on the other side of this one too. Sending you much positive energy.
All right, Joe Harrington, you're until next Monday. You're muted, Joe.
Yeah, I want to share something I read about from a book called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. He had 4 simple statements, and these are things that people should live by. First one is, be impeccable with your word. Number 2, don't take anything personally. Number 3, don't make assumptions. And number 4, always do your best.
All right, all right. Dr. Terry Mason, you're until next Monday.
Thank you. And again, also want to thank Shauna for her bravery, for telling us what a model patient ought to be like too. Not just the doctor, but what a model patient ought to be like. Because too many patients come in too afraid to do some of the things that you did. So I again also encourage you to continue doing what you're doing and be the model that you are. Remember that you are your most important asset. You are your most important asset, not your car, not your friend, not nobody, but you. So you ought to act like it and take care of yourself that way. And that's what I also saw and heard in your description of your situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. Shauna Jackson, you're until next Monday.
Make sure you see your doctor on a regular basis.
All right, Dr. Hampton, until next Monday.
All right, Shauna.
Can you please put up Gwen Butler's comment?
That's funny that I said that, and I didn't even see her comments. We are like, we're connected. We're connected, Gwen. I love you for that. That is so funny. I'm gonna leave that up because my comments are to thank you. A lot of people don't want to share personal stuff publicly. And in order for us to heal, we have to have the courage to do that. And I recognize whenever I'm doing a podcast or whatever, I know I'm asking people to be vulnerable and to be themselves and authentic, but it is those types of testimonies. It's not really the doctor's testimony, it's the patient that can then resonate. There's somebody out there that's hearing this message tonight who's going to have some symptoms. Maybe they have a fever. Maybe they have some lymph nodes. Maybe they've lost weight. They're going to be like, something's not right. And they're going to hear this and it's going to trigger them and say, you know what, this may be a sarcoid. Maybe I need to find me a Dr. Graham or Dr. Hampton, Dr. Pete, any of us who, will then do that ACE level, that angiotensin, and then help guide me. But it is testimonies like yours that actually lead to change, and you wake people up. And we don't have to be sick. We can find solutions. And you've lived with this for years, even though you look like you're still in high school. You've been dealing with this for years, right? And I appreciate that. So thank you for your testimony. And we need to do this more often. I know we've done it before, Nikki, but having testimonials to me is a powerful way to reach people and to teach. So thank you. Thank you, Danny Davis, for the platform. Thanks to all my colleagues. And I'm just so happy that we had this sarcoid discussion today.
Thank you.
All right. Just want to remind you guys a few things right before I bring the congressman. This is the improper way to wear your mask. This should only be like this when you're in your car alone or with your other person who you know has tested negative. Please don't let me see anybody in the Walmart, in Wally World, or in Jewel with your mask right here. Please make sure that the mask is over your nose and mouth, making sure that it is sitting snugly on the side. As Dr. Green shared, the numbers are creeping up. They are. And we've got to be safe. But most of all, it is important to get vaccinated. I know you guys think we pull out the violin and play the vaccination song all the time. But if you just do it, we wouldn't have to tell you anymore. So let's just get vaccinated, get your boosters, do all those great things. Do not forget to wash your hands. Washing your hands keeps down a lot of different things. And as Dr. Maya always demonstrates for us, there are certain places on your hands that she does not want you to miss when you are washing your hands, because it is so important to make sure that you do not forget these areas when you are washing your hands. And these areas in here just as well. And as you watch, she does that. Do that roll one more time, Dr. Maya, of how you should do it. There you go. So make sure you wash those hands and don't forget to do it in that manner. And also, if you don't have herd immunity, you know what to do. And keep your distance sometimes. It's very important to do. Join us right here, same bad time, same bad station on next Monday night with Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. Congressman, take us home. He's getting ready to unmute so he can tell us.
Very interesting discussion, as always. I think we've had some reprieve in terms of the pandemic, which still remains our most serious threat because we have not licked it in terms of saying that we've totally got it within our grasp. So notwithstanding the progress that has been made, we have to remember that caution is still the password, that observing all of the public health protocols, even if they're not mandated by anybody else, and nobody else should have to mandate for us what we need to do. I remember my mother teaching us this little poem saying that I have to live with myself, and so I have to be fit for myself to know. I have to be able, as the days go by, always to look myself straight in the eye. I cannot hide myself from me. I know what others may never know, and I see what others may never see. I don't want on a closet shelf a lot of secrets about myself, into fooling myself, into thinking that nobody else will know the kind of person that I really am. I don't want to dress myself up in a sham. I want to go about with my head erect. I want to deserve all men's respect. That means women too. But here in the struggle for fame and pelf, I want to be able to like myself. And above all, no matter what happens, I always want to be self-respecting and conscience free. So no matter what Dr. Saucy tell you, no matter what Dr. Fauci tell you, no matter what President Biden tell you, know yourself and what you must do and need to do. Thank you all for a wonderful evening. Have a good night, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you so much. All
And
right.
thank you. As we
Thank you,
wrap
Congressman.
up, thank you guys. I wanted to put Marja, her comments on the screen as we wrap up. I want to put the comments of another person that's all the way in Los Angeles following us. I thought that was wonderful. Thank you, Tanya, for being here. And then we're going to wrap up with the most obvious, which is our guest. So thank you, Gwen, for doing the shout out. So everybody have a great night, and thank you so much for everything, guys.
Good night. Thank